They'll be calling you a conspiracy theorist. Um, Welcome back, guys. It's some night on the weekend during the coronavirus. Whatever's happening is happening. Got a special guest joining in tonight. Um, that's going to be Juan Tescrue. We all know who Juan Tescrue is. All right. Couple more things. So I wanted to address a couple of issues with this so-called book that Jax West claims that I'm writing. Okay, so Jax West, she does this live last night, and it's funny because someone asked her for some juicy gossip, and so Jax West has nothing better to do but to say that supposedly I'm writing a book on her. Well, look, Jax West, 31 books on Stephen Avery. Um, I've donated over $130,000. It's not no get rich for me, but in hundreds of thousands of words, I don't mention the name Jax West anywhere. You ain't worth my time, okay? So we're gonna squash that little rumor there that we ain't writing no damn book about Jack's damn West. So get that out your head. I mean, we know that you love to be in your head and all that stuff, but whatever. So, um, just waiting for Juan to come on. And Juan,
Speaking of head, what the flying fuck is on yours, Garth?
man, there's a new sheriff in town, and I'm taking out the damn deputies. Now, we're live, so say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
I just had to set the record straight. Jax West thought I was writing a damn book about her, and 31 books that I have written on Stephen Avery case. I don't recall mentioning her damn name anywhere. So,
Yeah. Why? Yeah, I'm gonna write a book about. What? Okay. That makes no. Like, what would your subject matter be? You know.
Vagina bat. She hails herself as a great big vagina bat. There's an inside joke that got started about some photos where she dressed up as this giant vagina. All right, and then so she got called a vagina with wings, and then vagina bat come out of it, and now she likes the name vagina bat, but from the South, we call them giners and shit like that. So she'd be a giner bat, and I don't think I have any paragraphs, sentences, or one word to dedicate to the giner bat species.
You see, in Wisconsin, that would be a vagina that could fit a bat up inside. So,
what kind of bat? We talking about baseball bat? Cause
Louisville Slugger, I think.
Yeah, yeah, we're not writing no bats on home runs, grand slams, or anything. So no books on that.
Well, good.
I think Christy Lynn's wanting to join in with us. Let me add her to the thing. Christy, what's happening? Can you hear me?
I can't. I can't make my picture flip around though. How funny is that?
Oh, you were upside down.
I know, it's me and Ollie, and I can't make it go the other way. So I gave up and just decided everybody could look at it upside down.
Well, this would be really good. All you have to do is lop your boobs out, and then they'll end up like eye patches because of gravity, and it'd be the talk of the town.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Apparently, as I just heard you guys discussing, I've given people a lot of things to talk about. So I don't think I need to give them any more things to talk about.
Yeah, there was some rumor that me and Christy went around on this road trip and we're holding hands and whatnot.
I just want to clear the record. There's no secret that we went on a road trip together. And as far as holding hands, I looked at all our pictures. I don't see us holding hands.
I mean,
I see you have.
I could be gay for all anybody else knows about me out there. And like, if I want to be gay and hold any guy's hands or any female's hands, I don't think it's none of your damn business. For number one.
Well, at least you'll have a good song.
I'll tell you what this hand is it holding. You see this hand, Jax West? It's not holding a keyboard or a pen or any other form of electronic or physical writing tool to write a goddamn book about you. How about that? That's what it's not holding.
That had to be one of the funniest things I heard today.
So secretly you must have this crush on her is what I heard, and you're in love with her. So
I heard
you
that.
Want to be gay.
I heard that.
So, how's everybody faring in this COVID-19 coronavirus weather?
Dude,
I'm doing good.
Like, I'm constantly like doing stuff, and I don't know. I haven't ventured out on the road today just simply because it's actually the first day in a long time I haven't needed something from the hardware store, because I'm trying to get all the stuff that I've got organized, and I've been trying to do it over the past year. And of course, it's cold here in Wisconsin, so I can only do it when the weather warms up. So I started doing that again. And every time I start doing something, I'm like, oh, I need this. Oh, I need this. Oh, I mean, whether it's an eye hook or a nail, so, I've got a 1.5 inch, Phillips screw. I need a 2.5 inch, just crap like that. So now this is really going to impede my ability to do that. Of course, then again, what are they going to do? Pull everybody over? So I don't know. I hear cars. I want a main drag, and I hear cars all the time. So I don't think anyone's really, buying this crap. We've had 3 deaths in Wisconsin. One of the very first cases is a guy with AIDS. Okay, not HIV, AIDS. He lived. There's another guy who was from Shorewood, which is on the northern end of it's a real liberal bastion. The guy taught at MATC, right?
Right.
His kids had it, apparently. Didn't even know they had it. All right. He wakes up with body aches and chills. He had a real bad headache all day. His fever supposedly got to 106. This is what the article said anyway. And the next day he was fine. And then so he just decided
106.
106, which is incredibly.
That's bullshit.
But either way, I mean, if you have it for one day, it's like, yeah, I got a real bad headache and I got fever and chills, and then the next day you're fine. How bad is this thing? It's not. It's like, yeah, some people are going to die, but this is all just political bullshit. Speaking of which brings us to this live.
Right. Just a bunch of political bullshit, and that's basically the reason Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are in prison, if you ask me. Which I'm glad. I'm glad there's a lot more to this story that hasn't been told yet, because a lot of people, I think they're coming around and starting to see the possibility of nefarious things in the political realm. As far as this COVID-19 goes, we just had a Waupun correctional doctor test positive for coronavirus, and I mean that's kind of scary in a sense, because we have 18 inmates quarantined, if not more by now, and prisons don't report the truth of anything to begin with, and that all falls in political realm also, because they want the people to think their taxpayer dollars are working.
Right.
Yep.
But it's kind of interesting. I'm anxious to see a person with AIDS survive coronavirus. But what was the treatment for this guy?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know if they did anything. And of course they have a bunch of anti-malaria drugs that supposedly, and I don't know the mechanism of why that is, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they gave him medications. I don't know if he was even on a ventilator. I don't know but I couldn't believe it, because I was driving to the grocery store, and I was listening to Coast, and the news came on, one of those news commercials, and they said that. And this is like the day after like people started really like hoarding toilet paper. So this is about a week, maybe a week and a half ago. This is a while ago. And I just flummoxed hearing that, because I was literally about to turn the car off to go inside the grocery store. And I'm like, wait, the dude had AIDS? And I'm like, I must have heard that wrong. But then I'm driving back and I hear that same news report. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. The guy had AIDS and he made a full recovery. So, like, yeah, how bad is this? I mean, obviously, it's not necessarily something that it's an immune system issue. It's really how bad it affects you, and whether or not, because essentially what happens is very similar to pneumonia, where you can't breathe and you wind up dying in your own fluids in your lungs, right?
Right.
So, the people that are dying are the ones that have issues with breathing.
Respiratory, basically.
Yeah, diabetics, people who are overweight, people who are old, people with COPD. So I don't know. Like I said, unless the number changed since yesterday, we had 3 total deaths in Wisconsin and like 260 cases. So, I mean, the cases almost don't matter. It's how many people die, right?
Right.
Because there's no
I just looked ours up earlier when Chad was talking to you on the phone, and it was 500 confirmed cases and 20 deaths here.
Yeah, 20.
We do have 20. I mean, it's still
That's
the number.
The state of Georgia.
Like more people died in the state of Georgia on one day from opiates or heroin.
Absolutely.
So
smoking, alcohol, car accidents, domestic violence. Why are we freaking out about a virus?
Hello, Facebook user. Someone for Facebook said hello. So we're streaming for both Facebook and YouTube tonight. I kind of figured out how to make that thing work. 12 viewers right now, but that's more than CNN. So,
all right. Well, let's get down to business. So they don't leave.
Yeah, they can leave if they want to. Well, they'll have a good time either way. Lots of them be trapped down in their house right now. If they're smart, they'd be at home. So
yeah, but Pornhub's got a free premium membership, so that's what we're against.
I know, and they made some type of
report. I know, he says.
they made some type of report earlier that said that their broadband could carry all the people quarantined, and I was like, hell no. So. If y'all see me typing with one hand tonight, I'm not watching Pornhub on the other side of the screen. I promise.
All right, good to know.
I'm probably drinking coffee. So
it's really good to know, considering he's sitting at my desk on my computer in my office. I'd really like him to.
I hope you have disinfectant wipes.
Where'd you put that hand lotion? I got that hand lotion.
Oh my God. Oh my.
So it's going to be interesting to see if not 90%, how many percent of these inmates in Waupun get COVID-19. And what concerns me is the original prison doctor is on leave now. Is that just did he really catch the virus, or did they send him home so they could use their own doctors for certain situations at the moment? And that's one of my main concerns right now, because it is Wisconsin. We have a lot of eyes on this thing, but it would still be a end all appeals if Stephen Avery, let's say he caught it in theory, but they didn't treat him fairly, but quote that they're treating him fairly. Because, I mean, if you succumb right now to COVID-19 inside of a prison, how do you really argue that in a wrongful death?
How do you argue that at all? Especially if all of a sudden, they're going to cremate the body, or, I mean, it is a legitimate concern. Granted, I guess, they'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But, I mean, does Zellner's team have any plan for this in case something like that happens? Does anyone know?
That would be a good idea. I mean, I know that the pandemic right now is a crisis, not only for American prisons, but also for jails and, jails and prisons outside of America, of course. Got a buddy who lives in Fond du Lac. they know some people that have warrants out for them, and the officers are not even arresting people right now. And they're just sending out court summons, and they're just going to pick up people on cases, and that tells you right there that it's pretty serious. If they have a warrant for your arrest, they know where you're at, and some of these are felony crimes, okay, but no officers are picking these people up because they have the COVID-19 pandemic going on, and it's getting serious in the jails right now. So I find that interesting.
Very true.
And a lot of people are actually releasing inmates from county jail, not necessarily your prison, but more your county jail, because they don't want the I guess the liability of and jail environment is pretty nasty to begin with. You usually keep a common cold in jail. You got a lot of humidity. You have close quarters with other people. You got people coming in and out all the time, whether they're an employee or a new inmate who's done something that has to be sentenced for an amount of time, new arrest. So you have communicable diseases exchanging 24/7 inside of a jail facility.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with this doctor from Waupun Correctional Institution. He goes overseas. He brings the virus back with him, and this thing can lay dormant for 1 week to 4 weeks. And so, how many prisoners has he seen in the last month? That he's contracted this virus. And I guess that's more what we're dealing with, because if it's bad for any inmate to get it, but specifically in Stephen Avery's case, would he get fair treatment? And that's what I guess we need to put the emphasis on. You're asking if Zellner's team is aware of this. Does Zellner have a contingency plan? I mean, we don't know, but I know that it's an opportunity for Wisconsin to do something with it if they wanted to.
Very true. I mean, I almost don't think they will, even if they wanted to, simply because the way that thus far the legal system has worked, it's going to work in their favor and not Stephen Avery's favor. So, I mean, plus it would draw a lot of suspicion, I mean, I don't know. I think they're probably just going to let it take its course, because all this stuff, unless there's another judge that all of a sudden gets this case, and there has to be, even in the federal system, like an actual decent judge who's going to rule in their favor, Wisconsin's probably just going to play this safe, because even if if Stephen does get it, I mean, the chances of him surviving are pretty high, because he doesn't smoke, he's a little chunky. But I mean, he's 55 something, so he's not elderly, So
Right.
that's
the concerns I would have. Even though he may have a natural ability to recuperate himself, we don't know the doctor coming into the prison to take over for the time being.
Yeah.
When I was in prison, they would do X-rays of inmates, and they would leave the X-ray machines running and like doing prolonged exposures to inmates. These nurses were just evil as hell, man. And so they would expose the inmates to a shitload of radiation that they shouldn't be being exposed to.
Damn. What would they X-ray for? Like if you had drugs in your system or something?
Fractured clavicles if you get in a fight, just checking your collarbones out, broken ribs, cracked ribs. They X-ray in prison all the time for different stuff. So I mean, but if you're going to sit there and give an inmate prolonged exposure, it's kind of scary. And Alabama has a huge problem with some things, with a lot of stuff going on. Y'all
Like,
give me a second.
did you drop something?
He can't. What?
I did. I dropped something.
Your earbud?
Your pocket?
Here, let me do this right here. Can y'all hear me talking?
Yeah,
Yep.
you're fine.
Okay, y'all can hear me. Okay, I ain't gonna worry about the damn earbuds then. Yeah, so Alabama's having a huge problem with these deaths right now in their prisons, and they're not reporting a lot of them. But there's been over several dozen in the past year, and whether it's police like the prison brutality from the guards or inmate on inmate, they got a lot of things that they're hushing up in prison, and I mean it's a different environment inside of the prison, and they do hush a lot of things that happen. It's pretty sad. There,
Well,
there,
it is Alabama.
there was an incident in Georgia. This guy had raped this 3-year-old kid, and he went through Jackson Diagnostics, and in Jackson, you can rig the doors and pop them open when you want to, by taking deodorant bottles, and you break them and you line them in the locks. So when you have a deodorant bottle about 4 or 5 inches, and you line it up in the lock, and they have the old sliding steel doors with the bars you can see through, but when they click against these locks, they'll mash into the deodorant bottles and they'll pinch themselves shut. But then you can crack the door back open anytime you want to, and you have 120 cells on 2 blocks, and you got about 6 blocks in the place. So this 20-year-old, he pleads murder to the rape and murder of this 6-year-old, and he goes straight into prison. Like it was pretty quick, but the second day he's in prison, he gets hung, and they call it a suicide. And I know damn good and well he never committed suicide. He was hung. But you have officers allowing this shit to happen. They don't say nothing.
Hmm.
Some of these prisons, inmates run the prison. Officers, your CO2s, they're just your turnkeys. They just work there. They don't see nothing, don't hear nothing. I mean, they got to come back to work the next day. The prisoners live there. That's their home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there's a lot of things that go unreported: sexual assaults, rapes, everything. So that would be just one of my concerns with Stephen Avery, knowing the inside of the prison system and what gets hushed up, what doesn't get reported. I have a problem that if he did contract it, that he wouldn't get fair treatment. If they wanted to do it that way, I mean that would be. I mean, you really couldn't do nothing.
That's true. I mean, to do it after the fact, but I still think that, I just don't think. Plus, half these guys working there, they're concerned about their own health. So you'd have to have somebody with a pretty self-centered immune system to say, yeah, I'm going to go in there and make sure this motherfucker gets it. So, I mean, it's always that possibility, but.
Well, we'll go back to Kenneth Peterson for a second. He gets on live TV, and he's like, well, maybe we, if we wanted to kill Stephen, we could have killed him ourselves,
It would have been easier to kill him.
I mean, right now, besides do this appeal, it would be easier to kill him. Didn't have to deal with it. I mean, we're talking. I think if Stephen Avery gets out of this case, I think he at least has $500 million civil suit, 500 million easily. If he doesn't file for more than that, and if he could prove that he was innocent, I believe a jury would award it to him.
Yeah, but she's not necessarily, well, I guess she's not necessarily trying to prove his innocence as much as she's trying to poke holes in the prosecution, because the only way to prove his innocence is to either find the person who did it or find that she's alive, right? So
Right.
I know it's like potato tomato talk, but still, I mean, it's very
Tomato
important when you're debating some semantics in law, but it is something to. I mean, same thing with Brenda Dassey. You know, it's like, well, I guess no, his is a little different because his is based on the confession. He wasn't convicted on any sort of actual evidence, so you can't counter the evidence. Well, Stephen, it's almost the same thing. It's like, you know, you can't. You either got to find the person that did it, like, you know, find ballistics on gunshots that match, which of course is impossible. So, I mean, he's almost up the same creek.
Right.
Can you guys hear the dogs?
Yeah, they sound.
You can. That's why I have the video off, because they keep running over me. They're running circles around the living room.
Well, give him a piece of bologna with peanut butter in the middle, wrap it up like a burrito, and then toss it to them, and they'll be quiet for 5 minutes.
No. We will not put food between these two dogs ever again.
Well, you put one on one side, one on the other, and then you give it to them separately.
We have to separate them in rooms. We can't even do it in the same room.
Yeah, exactly.
They fight. I'm going outside so that I don't have to. They're nuts. They're absolutely crazy. They sleep good, though, because they run around all day. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't know if you guys could hear the dogs.
No, it's all right. All right, start. Oh. All right, start. When we were talking before with Glynn and all that stuff, start talking about that scenario. I gotta run and get something to drink real quick. I'll be gone for like 30 seconds. But start talking about that, Chad.
Yeah, I think first I want to bring Fallon's deposition up.
You got it up?
Before we get into Steve and Glynn real quick. So, I mean, I got it pulled up, but I don't have it where it can be read.
Okay.
Now, unless you got it
I do.
somewhere.
I do. I have it printed and it's on my computer.
Which one is it on?
Hang on, I'll come help you. Hang on, I'll be there in a second.
All right, I'm back.
All right. Hold on just a second. You stop just a second. Juan, we're going to talk about Fallon real quick, but I need to pull something up, so give me just a second.
Thought you said you weren't watching Pornhub. Where did you go, dude? Oh, man. What did he do? I can't see who's on.
Do that.
Like we had 12 people before.
Oh, shit. Yeah, so. Oh. I see what it did.
Here's your picture. You're still here, Christy, with your upside down picture muted. So, Chad obviously hit something that. You'd think this would be a lot simpler. So, okay, so you're back on, but.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but now you got it's.
You got to hit your video button because I shut your
picture.
video off, so you have my picture.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so I'm blinded. Let me see. Tom
They're in
Fallon. Well, Yeah, they're in alphabetical order of first name instead of
Yeah,
last.
I didn't do it. I didn't name the files. I just saved them the way that I got them.
Yeah, hopefully you put them in a folder.
I did. I have them all.
So Tom Fallon's deposition I found really interesting. I had said it numerous occasions that I was anxious to read his deposition because I wanted to see how much in alignments in accordance with Peg Lautenschlager's it would be on the identification witness process of identifying Gregory Allen because Lautenschlager, of course, with Fallon and her in the same office, we had Fallon working on the depositions of the state in this case when they deposed Manitowoc. So he would get the DCI reports and he would go over those reports. He was assigned by the unit manager, who is Stephen Tinker, who is basically the person who Peg appoints to appoint people to these cases. And of course, Fallon, his history has to do with sex offense related cases, and 90% of his cases in 2003, 2004, 2005 were dealing with sexual offenses. And Penny Bernstein's case, as we know, it was a sexual assault and attempted murder. So you're dealing with the sex offense. Now, Peg Lautenschlager's December 17th, 2003 report protects Manitowoc County by saying that there was no identification witness process that could have clearly established Gregory Allen as the culprit and victimizer of Penny Bernstein. So, what I wanted to read Fallon's deposition, I wanted to see how much parallel and in contrast that he went into with the identification process. And Fallon actually goes into stating that some reports weren't available. Then he says, "Oh wait, we found them," and then he is found out by other people being deposed in the civil suit that Fallon and Stephen Tinker, the unit manager, had actually told some of the DCI investigators to take these reports of Gregory Allen out. And so we all know that Gregory Allen was under surveillance, and he had a profile. So Lautenschlager's bullshit of protected Manitowoc. She wants to say that Gregory Allen could have never been identified. You're surveillancing him. So if you're building a profile of an individual who's known as a sexual predator to profile, you're already characterized by Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office. You already have a profile. So he was already properly identified. So to rule him out completely was utter bullshit. To rule Gregory Allen out, and so Fallon's deposition is May 12th of 2005, and it just gets very unethical, and it's definitely in sync with what Peg Lautenschlager is claiming. Y'all have any thoughts on that?
No, actually, I mean, everything that you just said, it's like, oh, yeah, well, he can't be identified. It's like, isn't that the whole point of surveillance? Because you've actually identified somebody as doing X, Y, Z.
Right. And so what's funny about this is June 3rd, we're less than a month away. Peg Lautenschlager is going to take the Avery Task Force over, and she's going to rename it the Criminal Justice Study Commission. And her entire effort, what she puts forward and forth for the Avery bill, which they also changed the name of it to reflect the Criminal Justice Study Commission, she makes a model policy of identification procedures. And it's funny because she's so hell bent to say that Gregory Allen was never properly identified. So her policy was to change identification procedures. I mean, now this is good for people who don't have to register as a sex offender to have policies for witness identifications. But the only thing is, if you're a known sex offender, even in 1985, you were already profiled. So she's protecting Manitowoc County on total bullshit. I mean, they had a very well and clearly established profile of Gregory Allen, and then Thomas Fallon is in these depositions hiding this information, and so it goes back to basically they were like, okay, so let's retry this case. Gregory Allen, Penny Bernstein case, and that's what they were doing in the office capacity to see if there would have been any exculpatory evidence that should have been given to Stephen's defense attorney in the original case. And so Gregory Allen, Tom Fallon sits there on record in deposition on May 12th and says that I really wouldn't consider any of this information as positively identifying Gregory Allen beforehand. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? It's sickening.
And that was probably what was going to be in the lawsuit,
Mm-hmm.
which means they had a really, really good case.
They're okay. So what you need in a civil suit is different than what you need in a criminal prosecution. You got to have reasonable doubt, beyond reasonable doubt, which is basically 95% to convict. And in your civil suits, you need what is called preponderance of evidence, or either clear and convincing evidence, which is right around 51% that it possibly happened. And that's a very low margin. And Stephen Avery clearly could have shown that Gregory Allen was profiled, and he should have been exculpatory evidence with what was known about him, especially when they already had a surveillance profile. And so here we not only have Kocurek and Dennis Vogel covering this stuff up, but we have the Attorney General's office. We have Stephen Tinker. We have Tom Fallon and a couple more DCI agents who are going along with what Tinker and Fallon are saying, and they're leaving reports out of the deposition on purpose because they're saying it holds no exculpatory value. So they're trying to beat around the bush and bury it, and it's just sickening.
Well, dude, it worked in the case because they had the same thing with the computer, with the Dasty computer. It didn't hold anything, and Beauty and Strang went, oh, okay. So,
right.
So, I mean, that was the exact same play they used.
Yeah, they're following a playbook now. Now, what's also really tell all, Fallon in his deposition, he brings up how he's really familiar with the Denny and how he has used it on numerous occasions. And I'm like, ding, 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 light bulb,
Yeah. Well, it's just like anything, it's like a football team. Whether it's a run and shoot or the pistol formation or the West Coast, I mean, they'll use what they know. So it makes perfect sense. It's like the Care Bears. They all get into the huddle, even though like they're going to come out with something other than the Care Bear stare. It's like, really? You guys are going to get into the huddle? I mean, you know damn well what you're going to do because you only got one thing to come out of that entire idea pool you got going there. Fucking loves a lot. Care Bears. That's all they got. Screw you, computer. Always wants to restart on me. Go ahead.
Yeah, technical difficulties run abundant in this day and time.
So from there, we also talked about Glynn and all that other stuff that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we have I got some questions on Let me pull this up real quick.
I thought you said you were watching Pornhub.
No, the other thing. I gotta pull the other thing up.
As long as it's not that thing, I'm fine with it. Honestly, I can't recall. But if
I
it's
can't
premium,
recall either. I'm going to use that as my
I gotta-
depositions. Have you ever used Pornhub? I can't recall.
seriously, I don't.
I can't put my hand on the Bible right now because it's on the keyboard, but I can't recall.
Yeah, I could. But if they really do have a premium thing, oh, I'm definitely checking that out sometime. Of course,
Oh my God.
knowing me, by the time I remember and get around to it, I'll log on and it'd be like, yeah, we stopped doing that. Like everyone's better, so piss off. I'll miss my opportunity. My brother once told me, it's like, you can walk into a house full of tits and come out sucking your thumb.
Right. Okay.
I'm not touching that one.
So if we go down to if you go to your Stephen Avery case.org and you go to the tab in it's in documents from Avery civil suit. You click there, and then the very first tab says Avery civil suit docket summary. Click on it, and you can scroll down to item.
FL.
No, it's not item FL, but it's item 45, page 4 of 7, the very bottom. It says filed and entered on October 26th, which is only 5 days before Teresa Hallback is allegedly murdered. It's a telephone conference that we're having, and it's a minute entry for the proceedings held before Judge Lynn Adelman, telephonic conference regarding the deposition dispute held on October 26, 2005, deposition of Thomas Kocurek. And the court,
Glenn Adelman's a federal judge, isn't he? He's
right,
the one that the local talk show host is always, this guy's a piece of work. This guy lets everybody go free.
Right, and see what's funny about this, September 26th, a month prior to this, we had William Griesbach, who is Michael Griesbach's brother. He recused himself because Michael gets deposed. Okay, so we have Michael Griesbach deposed on September 24th, and then the 26th, his brother says, well, my brother was it in 1985. He wasn't working for the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office in 85, but he has been deposed. So I think I need to step down to so there's no appearance of impropriety there. So he recuses himself, and it's a month. And Adelman is he's appointed same day that Michael or William Griesbach sits down. So here it is a month later.
Why was if he wasn't there, why was Michael Griesbach deposed unless he was the one who knew about
Michael's is deposed because he and Mark Rower drove 148 miles out to Madison to prompt the Attorney General to look into this to begin with. So this is where this matter all originally originates from. Is from Mark Rower, the district attorney, and Griesbach, the assistant district attorney. So they bring this to the attention of the Attorney General, Peg Wattenschlager, at the time.
Okay.
But so this deposition of Kocurek is happening a month after William Griesbach steps down, and the court is ordering Kocurek to answer the questions. Okay, so and then the parties may later brief admissibility issues here. Now, a lot of people say Kocurek was never deposed, but here we have a telephone conference, okay, and we're talking about the admissibility issue. Does this deposition get filed? We know for a fact that there was a lot of discovery to be done just from Stephen Glynn mentioning it in the phone calls with Stephen Avery, and they don't really postpone this case. They had time to depose Tom Kocurek. So I kind of feel like Alderman, the judge, I kind of feel they deposed him, and he was ordered to answer questions during this phone call. And for some reason, I just feel as the deposition happened here, and then they left it out. The thing is, we got the Freedom of Information Act for 35 depositions. We have listed in this the deposition of Thomas Kocurek, and we have this telephone call. Whether a deposition took place here or not, I would like to have the transcript FOIA'd on this phone call, exactly what was said, especially if we're not putting into admissibility Tom Kocurek's deposition, because there seems to be a problem with it. It's a deposition. How the hell is your deposition inadmissible in court? That's the whole point of the deposition. You're not supposed to hold anything back.
My guess is if you FOIA request this, they'll say, "Oh, a transcript doesn't exist."
Right, but we do have the filed and entered telephone conference, and a stenographer. Someone had to be there to record a transcript phone call.
Yeah, if it's a deposition, that by what you state, that's exactly what a deposition is for. In which case, that's technically evidence to be later on used. It's no different than a police interview,
Right. It's no different. So the funny thing is, if Alderman is ordering Kocurek to answer the questions, there's some type of dispute taking place, whether he wanted to show up and be deposed in person, which I'm thinking Kocurek had a date. Okay, this leads me to believe that Kocurek had a date prior to this, and maybe he bailed on it. He doesn't show up, so they hold this telephone conference. And so then when they're all in conference, the judge is saying, okay, Kocurek, you've got to answer these questions. Now, if you want to later the admissibility issue, you can bring that up later. And apparently something got filed. Was it another gentleman's agreement? We've seen a lot of that with the state and Jerry Buden and Dean Strang going on with Fallon and Kratz. So where the hell's the transcript of this phone call? Why is it entered in with these depositions?
If I remember correctly, the two people who were not deposed were Vogel and Kocurek, and they were about to be deposed when all of a sudden Teresa disappeared.
Right.
A couple days later.
And we have why would they be ordering Kocurek to answer the questions on the 26th? Okay, so apparently the dude doesn't come to his own deposition that was ordered earlier, and so they try to hide it afterwards, perhaps. The judge is not going to sit there and order you on 26 to answer the questions unless you failed to answer the questions at a prior date.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Is that with the very first episode of Making a Murderer, they talk about how those two were the only ones that weren't deposed. Yet this seems to indicate that
he was supposed to be deposed, and he was supposed to be deposed before the death and not after the death.
So, and then with this, was there a phone one? Was there then a transcript? Has anyone seen that? Did Buden and Strang see that? Did what's his face?
Glynn and Keller?
No. Well, those two, Nyrider and Drizzen. Did they see that? Did Zellner see that? I mean, this could be big. I mean, because if there was questions asked and he answered them, and to this day, as far as I know, neither of them have been deposed in that case still, obviously because the case went away. But who says the case, unless the statute of limitations, can't be open unless that 400K, which again is more shit that you've got that deals with Glynn that comes into that whole picture, that we still need to talk about, comes into play.
Right.
But I'm saying, does anyone else know this? Because this is potentially huge.
And see, a lot of people take it he's just being ordered to answer the questions. Well, where the hell is the phone conversation with the judge for everybody else? All these other 35 people to answer the questions. Here you have a classic account, a Kocurek trying to dodge biting the bullet on this, and it's almost like he's protected. Now, whether he is deposed in this telephone conference or not, there's a discussion of what the admissibility issue is here. Okay, so why we're not admitting his deposition into court, and why it would be very valuable to Stephen Glynn, Laura Nye, or Stephen Drizzen, Laura Nyrider, and Kathleen Zellner, what the admissibility issue at least was. So if we could get a copy of this phone conference, which I mean, don't think you're allowed to hold a phone conference off record, and we can definitely tell one existed here. So somebody has to have a record what this admissibility issue was, at least, even if there's not a deposition. But as you can tell, there's 35 other people that was deposed in the civil suit, but we don't see orders from the judge saying, "Hey, Tom Fallon, the court orders the witness to answer the questions. Michael Griesbach, the court orders the witness to answer the questions." We don't see this happening for anybody except for Kocurek. So that's a little discerning. It makes me think that he was scheduled sometime earlier in October, and he failed to show up. He's bucking the system. He's like, "I'm not going to do it."
Then that begs the question: where's Vogel's?
Right now, right above this one, item number 44. October 4th, answer to complaint. We have a docket text, amended answer to complaint with jury demand by Manitowoc County Dennis Vogel. So there was some type of complaint with Dennis Vogel on October 4th, and so here's the thing. Stephen Avery, the capacity of who he's suing in the civil suit is Tom Kocurek and is Dennis Vogel, and then everybody else working under them in whatever office in Manitowoc County. So it's funny how the main people that you need to depose in this entire civil suit, how they're being protected throughout 35 other people being deposed. I mean, why weren't they deposed very first? And so whenever the state, let's what about when Michael Griesbach and Mark Rower go to the Attorney General's office and they prompt them to investigate? Where the hell are the interviews with Amy LeMan and Deb Strauss and whoever else was involved interviewing these other people? Why don't we? It's not only Stephen Glynn and Walt Kelly's deposition missing, it's the DCI's report we're missing. We had two investigations. We had the state attorney general's office investigating, and then we had Stephen Glynn and Walt Kelly investigating. So there's basically should be two depositions here. Well,
here's another thing. If those two are the main guys, wouldn't you
do them first?
Interview them first, then interview everybody else to see if there's any, corroboration and this and that, then interview them again.
Right. Now the first people that would have interviewed them naturally would have been the Attorney General's thing. And so we have Fallon and the Attorney General Lautenschlager's office removing information on Gregory Allen, and I mean, so Stephen Avery's civil suit is filed October 12th of 2004, and here it is, the 26th of October, 2005, a year and 14 days later, and no one's talked to Kocurek and no one's talked to Dennis Vogel. Give me a damn break. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So apparently, I see Thomas Kocurek not showing up for a prearranged deposition, and so Adam is sitting here saying, "Hey, I'm ordering you to answer these questions," and then he puts in the instructions. If you got a problem with it, the parties may later brief admissibility issue. So what the hell's the admissibility issue? Could it be the fact that they knew that Gregory Allen was profiled because he was a damn sexual predator? Of course it could. So
Yeah.
if they have to admit that, then Stephen Avery is going to win his civil suit, his 51% on preponderance of evidence or clear and convincing evidence. I mean, it would be so clear to the jury that they would be like, well, shit, Gregory Allen should have definitely been a suspect.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to Stephen Glynn now. This happens to 26, and so and this is the 26th of October. So Stephen Glynn, if you back up to just days after Tom Fallon is deposed, he's deposed in May. In the beginning of June, we have Lautenschlager taking over the Avery Task Force, and she appoints Stephen Glynn to the commission. She seats Stephen Glynn as a founding member of the Criminal Justice Study Commission.
But was he there also with the Avery Task Force, or this new?
He just comes on in June. He's appointed basically in June. So Avery Task Force, their last meeting is held July 31st, and the Criminal Justice Study Commission, their first meeting meets August 31st, but he's been appointed by June 3rd. And it's very interesting because the charter statement for this commission is you cannot point fingers at Manitowoc County 1985. You can't do it. To be a seated member, you can't point fingers. And what is Stephen Glynn's job here? Who's he supposed to be pointing fingers at? Well, the defendants in Stephen Avery's civil suit are Tom Kocurek and Dennis Vogel, but yet we have a year on record, a year and 14 days they could have did depositions, but we don't have a single deposition from any of these people. We don't even have an investigations from them from the DCI office.
It almost sounds like a payoff of sorts.
So yeah, Stephen Glynn, I am hell bent to say that Peg Lautenschlager eventually got to Stephen Glynn, and when November rolls around, his only job is to basically get Stephen Avery to settle out. And it's funny because it's not your typical settlement. It's a order for dismissal with prejudice, and with prejudice means that it could basically never be brought up to court ever again, and Stephen Avery can never have this case retried, and that's without fees, disbursements, or costs to Kocurek, Vogel, or any of his insurers or any other employee of Manitowoc County. So that leads you to question, where the hell does the money come from? Well, they file a lien under a constitutional code that says, hey, Stephen Avery is basically indigent. and we need to get paid. But when the judge orders that, then Stephen Glynn and Walt Kelly, they say, hey, you just pay us and we'll pay Dean Strang for you and Jerry Buden, and we'll kick out $240,000 over to them out of $400,000 straight to their account, which comes out of Walt Kelly's trust fund. But the thing about this is that you have a different law office involved in this. Stephen Avery went to the law offices of Mike Fox and Robert Gringus, and Gringus is wanting 40% contingency fee on this also, and so the actual case doesn't even get settled until April 28th. So why the hell are we wiring Dean Strang and Walt Kelly money, Dean Strang and Jerry Buden money from Walt Kelly's trust fund when the judge orders it to be held constructively pending the outcome of the other civil suit wanting money from this case? You done?
Sorry, got distracted for a second.
It raises a lot of questions. So
it does. I don't like how a lot of those dates don't match up. They're talking about I didn't like any of that last night when we were looking at that and listening to all those phone calls again of him talking to Glynn and Kelly.
Yeah, Glynn, in the Super Lawyer magazine, he says as early as November, when Stephen Avery's arrested and everything starts pointing to him, he felt that he was guilty from that moment. And so here we have Stephen Glynn acting like he's his best damn friend. November, December, January, February, March. He's even after they done settled the case, supposedly February. Glynn is still talking, and Stephen Glynn is still talking to Stephen Avery and still giving him advice, and the civil suit's already settled out. So I definitely feel as if Peg Lautenschlager got to Stephen Glynn, because to say, hey Stephen, we're going to dismiss this with prejudice. You can never bring it back up again, and Manitowoc County is off the hook. That's fulfilling the charter statement, for one, as a seated member to Peg Lautenschlager's commission. Do not point fingers at Manitowoc County, 1985, and he carries out that specific instructions of the charter statement.
Why was it deemed with prejudice? Like what? And that obviously is the kicker to getting it to where you can't do anything about it now. But why was it deemed that?
With prejudice?
Yeah.
Okay, so don't be confused with like there's prejudice against a case. That's not what that means. It just means when you settle something with prejudice, it means that you are allowed to never bring it back up in any other court, which is funny because they basically don't want Stephen Avery ever bringing this back up, but a lot of people get confused with what happens next. They're thinking it's okay for Stephen Avery to say, hey, I got a planning defense on you. So he settles February 6th, okay? It's ordered February 13th, 14th, that the dismissal goes into effect, and Manitowoc County's off the hook. And then Dean Strang comes on the 23rd. He's paid, I believe, on the 16th of February. He comes on the 23rd, and the first thing they do for their defense theory is that Manitowoc County planted evidence, right? But technically, Stephen Avery is not allowed to point any fingers or bring any of Kocurek's actions or Vogel's actions back up after the settlement of the civil case. He's not allowed to bring it into a different court. So how the hell does this theory of plant evidence, the defense theory, make it back into a courtroom when it's not allowed?
Well, there's a difference between saying, see what they did the last time, and saying, see what they did this time for planting evidence. Now, granted, it would be helpful if they could go back and do that, but that didn't stop them from being able to bring up the stuff that they did in this case.
Right. It doesn't. They don't stop it because they're pretty much appeasing Stephen Avery and giving him the defense theory that he wants. The only thing is that it lawfully and legally holds no weight. Stephen Avery says on February 14th, look, y'all are off the hook, and it's with prejudice that it can never be brought back up. How the hell do they just let them bring it back up 10 days later? Not allowed to, but he's under direction from Jerry Buden and Dean Strang all of a sudden, who Dean Strang was Stephen Glynn's partner, you know. and how does he have a Madison office all of a sudden, but he's answering the phone at Stephen Glynn's office on November 11th, 2 days after Stephen Avery gets arrested. He's like, hey, I'm Stephen Glynn's partner. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell are you in the office for? When did you dissolve your partnership with Stephen Glynn? And when did Peg Lautenschlager get you this nice new office here, right across the street from her? There's so much corruption in this civil suit.
I agree with you. I finally agree with you that there's a lot of corruption here and a lot of things that don't make sense. And you know that 9 months ago, 6 months ago, however long we've been friends, you know that wasn't the case in the beginning.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people just don't want to believe it. They don't want to.
I agree.
They don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Dean Strang and Jerry Buden are such remarkable attorneys, and you can never tell these people otherwise. They are the holy grail of attorneys. Well, if you're a holy grail of attorneys, why the hell didn't you call more expert witnesses to the stand?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many holes in that alone.
Why? Another thing. So Stephen Glynn, in his civil suit, he gives his bio. Whenever Gringus and Fox are trying to get 40% contingency fee, they're trying to go after the $160,000 that they're supposed to get. When Stephen Glynn files his bio in it, he does not report that he's sitting on the Criminal Justice Study Commission. And this is in February of 2006, and he's been sitting on the Criminal Justice Study Commission since June of 2005. So he had 8 months to put the shit down, but he never. I don't even think Stephen Avery was ever aware he was on the commission with Jerry Buden.
Does he know that now?
I've informed him of it, and he told me, 3 years ago he didn't even know that. So, but I mean, don't you think? Here's the thing that pisses me off. November 15th, the founding members of the commission, Peg Lautenschlager's commission, they vote to change the Avery bill to the Criminal Justice Reforms Package, which stems from the Criminal Justice Study Commission. And they voted to change that name. And this is Stephen Glynn and Jerry Buden, who are voting to change the name November 15th to the criminal. They're renaming it because they felt Stephen Avery was guilty, and to continue in the name of the Avery bill, it would be disrespectful to the Hallback family. So 3 months later, when you're advising Stephen Avery, hey, we got this settlement done, now let's get you an attorney. I think it should be told to Stephen Avery that, hey, even though we settled out and we got you this attorney, it should have been told to Stephen. He did vote against you to change the name of the Avery bill. You know, we hear Chrissy, don't we hear Stephen and Dolores talking about the Avery bill being changed?
Yeah.
Okay, so and Stephen's unaware the entire time that his own civil suit attorney and
his future criminal defense attorney
is right are ones changing the fucking name to it. I mean, this is stuff that Stephen Avery should have been aware of.
You think?
But he isn't, and so I just call a spade, man. I see too much collusion. I see too much of a conspiracy here to fuck Stephen Avery over. I mean, I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. How do you not even put on your bio for the court when you're settling out with a different attorney for the $160,000 that how do you remarkably leave the Criminal Justice Study Commission off of your resume when you're submitting your bio? You had 8 months to add it. 8 fucking months. Why is it not on there?
I'm sure there's a reason.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason too. Now the thing is how do you get other people to see this, and how do you get Kathleen Zellner to see this? I mean, shit. She's a loophole artist, but she also sues counties whenever she gets her clients off the hook. So she should be smart enough to see what the hell's going on here. But here she is. She puts up this thing. The 4 billboards that we put up. All the tips we got point to the same two people. Christy, did you see a damn billboard anywhere when we were traveling?
Not a single one.
I don't recall any. Juan, do y'all have any billboards in Milwaukee? Or
have you seen any of these billboards?
Which ones?
The ones that Zellner supposedly put up, and these people calling in.
Yeah, about
I've not seen one. No.
The $100,000 tip line. So we put 6,000 miles on the road, and I ain't seen the first damn billboard. And supposedly there's 4. I mean, we come right by Sears Tower in Chicago, and I didn't see and we were in traffic jam, and I think I would have seen the $100,000 tip. I mean, just didn't see it, man.
Yeah.
Didn't see nothing in Manitowoc. I mean, it's Zellner's job to play loophole artist and bring up Brady violations, bring up, attack the Denny, and show exculpatory evidence and challenge the biological material. But why not point out the fact that Stephen Avery had a bullshit civil suit attorney that went rogue on his ass as soon as Peg Lautenschlager appoints him to the commission? I mean, when the charter statement says you cannot point fingers at Manitowoc 1985, but yet you're a civil suit attorney that's supposed to be pointing fingers for Manitowoc 1985, but it's against your charter statement of that commission to do it. Someone needs to be saying, what the fuck, And it really boggles my mind at how just like naive and how many sheeple we have out there. I mean, Stephen Drizzen is like the god of this Brendan Dassey stuff, and that would have been the best expert witness to call in Brendan Dassey and Stephen for Stephen to challenge this this interrogation of Brendan Dassey in Stephen Avery's case. You know, at least if they would have called Brendan Dassey to the stand, Brendan Dassey could have challenged the evidence. He could have challenged the evidence and wouldn't just be fighting a confession right now. He would actually be able to challenge the physical evidence, but he can't do that because it was Jerry Buden and Dean Strang's idea to keep him off the stand. Now, regardless if he would have got convicted anyways, the difference in your post conviction appeal right now, they know that he would have had a chance to fight this evidence, but yet they keep him off the stand purposely, and I believe it's for that reason.
Well, yeah.
You have the lead legislative experts who are practicing attorneys working this case on the defense and the prosecution, and this case went to hell in a handbasket. And these are supposed to be the best of the best, and it's the damn stupidest, most ball drop case in America.
I agree.
But we definitely have collusion with Stephen Glynn. I mean he definitely fulfills the charter statement and gets Manitowoc County right off the hook. I just gotta.
Well, now you gotta wonder, like, what was his compensation? You know,
the compensation for what?
well, because if all of a sudden he hands the Manitowoc on a silver platter saying you can't do anything to this case anymore, he had to be compensated somehow.
Well, I mean, who splits the check? Tell me the four people that split the check when Stephen Avery settled. You got Stephen Glynn, you got Walter Kelly,
80,000 of it.
you got Dean Strain, and you have Jerry Buden. And so Walt Kelly and Glynn, they get 160,000, which they split 80, and then the 240 goes to Dean and Jerry, and they suck that shit dry in expenses so quick, which I honestly don't even believe they got a damn thing.
What bothers me the most is that money keeps getting referred to as a settlement, and it was not a settlement.
Yeah.
That's what's pissing me off the most for the last 24 hours.
It is an order of dismissal.
And a pity payment. It's a pity payment is what that $400,000 is. That's not a settlement.
Now, granted, like you were trying to bring the issue up last night, we do have Stephen Avery on these new charges. But the thing here is that Stephen Glynn reports in Super Lawyer magazine in 2011 in an article called The Lawyer Who Saw the Lightning. He reports that in November that when all the signs started pointing to Stephen Avery, he felt he was guilty. So you're definitely not trying to settle out anything in Stephen Avery's best interest come February. If you feel that he's guilty November 9th when he's arrested, and then November 15th you change, you're one of the founding members of Peg Lautenschlager's commission that changes the name of the Avery bill, you're definitely trying to settle this out for different reasons. You know, you're not on Stephen Avery's side anymore. And Stephen Avery, you know, they settle this in a bullshit way. It's an order of dismissal, and it's with prejudice, so it can never be brought back up. And so, if Kocurek was rightfully deposed, and if Vogel was rightfully deposed, Stephen Avery could have walked away with at least $8 million in this. You know, I would say $5 to $8 million on average. He would definitely be able to show a jury that Gregory Allen was profiled and well known by Manitowoc County, the sheriff office, and the district attorney's office. And these are the reports that Fallon on May 12th he gets caught for He gets caught for saying that he never seen them, and then it's they were there, and then Steve Tinker, the unit manager for the Attorney General's office, he's sitting there telling the DCI agents to make them disappear. How the hell are you making shit disappear? This was an open shut textbook case. It was open and closed, man. If Kocurek was properly deposed and Vogel was properly deposed, the jury would have seen plainly that Gregory Allen was a viable suspect. He was a sexual predator. He was registered and he was profiled and he was classified as a dangerous, sadistic motherfucking perpetrator. And I don't give a shit what Peg Lautenschlager says about there was no identification process. No, you have already they identified Gregory Allen through all means possible. If you're on surveillance, then you're supposed to be watching this person for everything he does, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
one day.
So crazy.
But yeah, definitely Glynn. I mean, if you're invited to sit on Peg's commission as a founding member, and I definitely think that Stephen Glynn was told to sweep this case under the rug as quick as possible, just get it over with, make them settle. And I can hear this in the phone calls. Stephen Glynn asked Stephen Avery. He's like, so what do we have going on with funds for defense? And he's talking about how he's put notifications in different papers and different like just different advertising spots. And what was it, $58,000 he said that he acquired at one point? Did I hear him say $58,000, Christy? That people
I
and
don't
this,
remember.
and this is January. Look, I think it's right when he comes out of the hospital from his kidney stone, because Dolores is talking about we still got doctor bills, but they're like talking about that they done had the community put up $58,000 for them. But the thing is, Stephen Glynn is, hey, what direction you want to go with this? And Stephen Avery says, we'll take it from there when we get there. But right now, I basically have family and friends helping to raise money for defense counsel, and it's almost from that point that Stephen Glynn is like, hey, we're going to settle you out. It's like, we're going to get you the money for your defense attorney. Don't worry, we're going to settle you. But Stephen Avery was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's $58,000 that he was able to have people in the community pledge from his advertisement, and I think that kind of got the ball rolling on them trying to settle out quicker, because I mean, if you got $58,000, who's going to match that if you got everything going well? And we don't have Brendan Dassey. We don't have Brendan Dassey coerced at all at this point. But what we do see in January, as like at the same time that Stephen gets out of this doctor's office, we got Marie Avery and her mother going back to the police agency talking about this rape charges. And I think that was a counter punch from the state of Wisconsin to say, hey, you're donating $58,000 to this person, but look, he just raped this girl back in 2004. I think that was the angle, what they're trying to do there.
Well, the other thing that I want to mention and that bothers me is that this whole time period as well, both Stephen and Dolores are having trouble reaching Steve Glynn, which they've never had trouble before, according to things that they say to each other in the phone call. Stephen mentions it, I believe, to Debbie Klemp and both Dolores and possibly Carla or Stacy. I can't remember. That he's having trouble getting a hold of Glynn, that Glynn's never in the office. And I know that there are a lot of calls that were not uploaded that were just Stephen calling and the calls not getting connected because the receptionist, secretary, whoever's answering the phone in Glynn's office is told not to accept calls if Glynn's not there or Glynn's not available. Because what was it? I can't remember now, but it's like $5 just to connect the call and for the first minute. So
Right.
they were not accepting his calls if they were just going to be telling him Steve Glynn wasn't available. So there are a number of calls and Stephen attempting to call Steve Glynn. And we hear about Dolores attempting to call Steve Glynn. And then in that one phone call, I can't remember the date, but it's like January 25th or 26th or 23rd, somewhere in there. Glynn's secretary says he's out of the office till February 24th.
Right, February 23rd. He's going to be out to February 23rd.
And 23rd, that's right.
And it's funny
January
because
24th.
Because on
January 24th.
On February 23rd is the day that Jerry Buden is asking Stephen Drizzen questions, and Stephen Glynn was present in for that commission hearing. He was present.
How do you go away for a month when you're in the middle of this quote unquote negotiating this civil suit and not communicate with your client that you're not going to be available? Or, at one point he tells Stephen, I'm going to be out of town for a few days, call Walter Kelly. But yet this time that he disappears for a month, it almost makes me wonder, was he pushing Stephen off so that he could be doing these nefarious things behind Stephen's back?
Right. Well,
could all of these talks with Peg have been, everything that you point to with Steve Glynn actually working against Stephen, could that have been why he was avoiding Stephen and Dolores? Because he does avoid Stephen and Dolores, and they both notice it.
Right. Well, it's funny how he's back in town on the 23rd to go to the commission. That meant about Stephen Avery to that commission hearing.
Right.
This is important stuff going on because you have these people working on this commission. First of all, Jerry Buden and Dean Strang say that they didn't want to do a mistrial when you have Richard Mahler bail out during deliberation, and they have to replace them because they don't have the funds to do this stuff. But you got to remember, the same issues they're tackling in this case are the same very issues that Jerry Buden has been volunteering to write about as an author for legislative purposes for the past 4 years. So if you can volunteer your time for the last four years on you had jailhouse snitching, you had electronic monitoring, you had tunnel vision, you had contaminated DNA, and you had statutory offenses, which would be basically Stephen Avery being brought up on gun charges. But all these political issues are actually the issues Stephen Avery's facing in his case. So why wouldn't they just redo the trial? And just when you're already this far, why would you just say, "Hey, we're done with you, Stephen. We're not gonna call a mistrial. The verdict's in," and I would have called a mistrial. If you're that close, and you already got 4 years of experience on the exact and volunteer hours. Jerry Buden wasn't getting paid with this. He was volunteering his place for these 4 years on these exact issues. Then why don't you just say, hell, I got 4 years of briefs on these issues, so we're just going to take your case and continue. Something just don't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right with me, especially whenever June 3rd you have all these issues going into all these political issues being talked about Attorney General Peg Lautenschlager, and they all find their way into Stephen Avery's case. And then neither Stephen Glynn blows a whistle. You figure if he's on the commission, he should have definitely seen what the hell was going on. Jerry Buden doesn't blow a whistle, and Stephen Glynn's the one who recommends Buden. It's all a farce. It's all bullshit. It's all premeditated.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah, I like that saying. I use that one a lot, especially lately.
Well, they can sit down at my table anytime they want to. Wink, wink. We shall bake you cookies and cakes, and we shall have a feast.
Brownies and iced coffee.
Brownies.
Torches and rusted tools and log trains and abandoned warehouse. Oh, wait, that's not food. Sorry.
I can't help you with that stuff. I can help you with food.
But yeah, I see way too much collusion in this case, and then especially with Fallon's deposition, basically helping protect Peg Lautenschlager's stance on protecting Manitowoc County. And I mean, it's all bullshit. So why is it Kocurek and Vogel? Why aren't they deposed in the first year and 14 days of this civil suit? Why do we not have anybody questioning them for the first year and 14 days?
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, we got 35 other depositions. How many minutes? Does anybody know how many minutes total we have that they spend on depositions?
If you give me a minute, I'll tell you.
I mean, we got. I'm taking we got nearly hundreds of hours, right?
Oh, I don't think it's
Maybe
that many.
78 hours. I mean, it's enough for a couple of days worth of depositions, right?
Hang on, I'll tell you in just a second.
And they couldn't find any time to depose Kocurek and Vogel in a year's time. Give me a break.
Well, you know the high crime rate in Manitowoc County. Where you got, one murder every 10 years and 1 or 2 overdoses a year. They must just be slammed.
Right.
And I apparently have more staplers than I know what to do with.
I have quite a few staplers.
I believe you have my stapler.
I don't think I have yours, but I have a lot. Okay, hang on a minute.
What's she looking for?
I'm trying to add up how many
hours the deposition, these 35 depositions, the period of time, and I mean it's just there's no call, there's no excuse for Stephen Glynn and Walt Kelly not having a deposition for Kocurek and Vogel a year and 14 days into the civil suit.
Yeah. Good point.
And they got grilled pretty hard. Fallon got grilled pretty hard by Kelly, by Walt Kelly, and I think it's after Fallon realizes what the hell's going on, is that Attorney General stepping in and says, okay, I'm taking over the Avery Task Force, and we're gonna shut this up. I'm gonna seat Stephen Glynn, and we're gonna settle Stephen Avery out, and that's the way it's gonna be. And I don't want to hear nothing else about it. It's gonna be with prejudice, and it's never gonna be brought up again.
I just don't understand like why they would agree to it with prejudice where nothing could else ever be brought. Because that's the kicker. Because once he signs that, everything's over.
Right, but the funny thing is he goes and brings it up in the planning defense, right? 10 days later, which which you know, if Fallon and Kratz wanted to say, hey, Stephen Avery just settled out, you can't mention Kocurek as a planning defense because you just settled out. They could have lawfully brought that up, and the judge would have to say, okay, you cannot use this theory for a defense theory. You can't do it. Manitowoc County's off the hook. They could not lawfully bring it up anymore, and that's why I think a lot of people are confused about what's going on here. And you only basically, when you do something with prejudice, you know, the judge basically feels like, hey, we'll never resolve this on either side. And it's basically to stop the plaintiff from ever filing again. So they're basically, Stephen Glynn and Kelly are saying, hey, Stephen, we're going to dismiss this with prejudice. You can't bring it up again. We just and if you listen to the phone calls, they're telling Stephen Avery it's a one-time deal. It's a one-time deal for the defendants in the case on the civil suit for Kocurek, and it's one-time deal, and they need to settle it out ASAP because we just want you to have a defense attorney. But if it's a one-time deal, then why the hell are you offering to do with prejudice?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, hey, here's Scarlett Johansson, but she's got gonorrhea.
Brian, we took her for a couple of rides. She's not as good as she once was, but she's as good once as she'll ever be.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty sad, you know.
Well, there's another thing we were talking about. That one last thing that earlier on, how this had to do with Fallon and Glynn. And I can't remember what it was, but it was something similar to what we were talking about before, which was like what we're talking about here. It's like that with the prejudice that makes or breaks a case, you know.
Right.
I can't remember for the life of me what it was. I don't know. I was hoping you'd remember.
Okay, so in negotiations and settlements, parties can use prejudice during their own, but it has to be referred to as a voluntary dismissal with prejudice. And we don't have a voluntary dismissal. It says that both parties agreed on it, right? And they failed to classify it as a voluntary notice of with dismissal with prejudice in the actual order. And it's almost like you know, you hear Stephen Glynn talking to Stephen Avery, and he's like, they're not budging on the price. They started this one, now they're going up, and they want to stay right here. It's I don't know, man. It almost just seems like the best interest for the state was to settle this ASAP. And you have,
Of course it was, because the minute it's almost like when I was talking about how when Brendan got coerced, and Barb comes in and sees him, and Wiegert's sitting there tapping his fingers because he knows as soon as she walks out of there, he's now property of the state. And it's not like you're going to be like, you know what, I'm going to go see a private investigator today. No, you have to make a phone call during your 1 hour of break, or write a letter, or do something in order to get a hold of somebody in order for them to do anything. Because once you're in prison and in custody, you're now a ward of the state. Well, once you signed on that dotted line saying you can never talk about this again, hell, that was like the eureka moment for them, because now no matter what, you can't go back and talk about that unless you open a new suit with new grounds, because that was already settled. So unless there's something else, that will almost never come to fruition in any way, shape, or form.
I had to send you that screenshot just because of the number. It's
Right.
48 and a half. There's 48 and a half hours. It's
48 and a half
2,906
hours.
minutes.
So that's 2 solid days worth of video depositions. We have 48 hours of video depositions, and they couldn't find time in a year to squeeze Kocurek and Vogel in there. I'm calling bullshit on that. So whatever's happening here, we have an admissibility issue, and I think that we should all raise money to get a transcript of this call.
You don't have to raise the money. I'll just pay for it. Just get it.
Do you know what it would be? Because when you're normally, how many pages of transcript are there in, say, the longest one of the 48-hour depositions?
Okay, hold on.
It averages 1 page a minute. I printed them all, and it's roughly 1 page a minute, because I happen to know that it's, hang on, shit, I just closed it. It's 2,900 and something pages. The pages almost equal how many minutes.
Pages out?
Yeah, well, no. Yes and no. I did. I need it in print. I need to make notes. I need to highlight. I can't do everything digitally. I can't. I need them printed.
Damn.
It's just how I am. There's a big stack sitting next to my desk.
Then I'd suggest you don't go on Pornhub, because if you need all those frames printed, you're going to be.
She's going to need something to hold besides a keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going anywhere near Pornhub. Thanks. I'll pass.
I got no smart ass for that. But,
I'm good.
No, because if it's about a page per minute, and say the average, okay, so you're talking, okay, $120. So if it's $1 per page, to say it's even $5 per page, but
it was $1.90 a page. It was $1.90 a page. It cost them.
Okay, so basically $2 a page. So you're looking at about $250 in order to get that transcript. Now, my guess is it's a phone transcript, and if it's a phone transcript in the scenario where he didn't want to answer a lot of questions, it's probably going to be short. So I just contact him with a FOIA request. They're going to say you need to pay X amount, or call them and say, hey, I need to find out how much to send you guys in this FOIA request. For this particular transcript, how much is it going to cost me? And I'll send it to you. And then you can, instead of you sending the request, they say it's going to cost you X, sending it back to you in writing. If you can call them and say, hey, can you give me how much? And I'll just send it to you right away, because that will cut out the middleman and you'll get it faster. Plus, especially if you get, the longer it takes for all this to happen, the more that somebody can maybe go, oh, I know what they're after, and that can't see the light of day. So if you call up somebody, get some kid answering, and they say, yeah, it's going to send, you say, okay, I talked to Tim on such and such a date, and he said, this is the cost. Or you say, hey, Tim, can you send that to me in an email so I can then return, with that and then print that out. So they've got something, because if they've got it in writing that Tim told them it's going to be this much, they really don't have a case against you to say, hey, no, it's really going to cost this much. So if you already know approximately how much it's going to cost and you're willing to pay it, call them up first and see if they'll give you that, and then send it all in one shot. And then hopefully you're just going to get some, like Aaron Brockovich, some kid, that's some intern just doing it, not even knowing the implication of what you're asking for. And then you'll be able to get it, because the less time that goes in between you asking and you getting is probably going to be, because all it takes is for one person who kind of knows something about that to see it and go, oh, we're going to put the brakes on this, because it happens all the time here.
Right.
So that'd be my suggestion. After you watch Pornhub.
After you watch Pornhub.
I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Let me know how it works out for you.
Oh, you don't have to worry about that. Premium membership. I'm gonna be trying that out sometime. I guarantee it. You know, because yeah, I was talking to a guy. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm so horny. Like anything with holes. Like I'm not allowed in Dunkin' Donuts anymore.
Oh my God. Oh my
Donuts
God.
are afraid of me. Do you remember what that thing was that we were talking about earlier? It had to do with Glynn and Fallon.
We might have covered it.
Did we?
Could have been when you were taking your little break when you got sidetracked.
Yeah, probably.
So basically,
Yeah, I think we did. I think we talked about Glynn.
My issue with Fallon and Glynn is okay. So Fallon basically he's being questioned, and he's being caught basically for saying that he never had information in a file, but then it's found out that he put the information in a file, and then is brought to the attention to the unit manager Stephen Tinker that it was told to take these reports of Gregory Allen out of the file. Okay, and I don't know. So you can definitely tell there was a huge conflict about to arise from the civil suit team, but it's almost like immediately after Fallon gets deposed, we have Peg Lunschlager coming in, and she's basically ceding Stephen Glynn to the commission. Less than a month later. And I have an issue with that because that's inviting. I mean, this was basically Peg Lautenschlager's commission, and that's inviting you to come sit on her task force when her overall objective is to protect Manitowoc County. So why would Stephen Glynn even go around that animal? I mean, why would he even attach himself to it?
Yeah, I don't.
Peg Lautenschlager's entire focus here was, okay, Manitowoc County, we didn't have an identification process to identify Gregory Allen, and Stephen Glynn and Walt counties in total, Kocurek and Vogel, had identified Gregory Allen as a predator, a sexual devious predator. He was on file, and he was identified as a person definitely who was exculpatory. Okay, and so when you get Peg Lautenschlager saying, "Hey, Glynn, come over here and sit down with me," that's a big issue. That's a huge issue.
He was identified in numerous.
We can't point fingers at Manitowoc County no more. Does anybody have an issue with that, or is that just me? I mean, am I the only one who feels this way?
No.
Is anybody there? Hello?
Can you not hear us? Can you not hear us? Yeah, I can't. I don't know why he can't hear us. I know he should be able to hear me too because I'm in the house. I've been outside, but I'm in the house now.
Well, then shout
Can you not
at him.
hear us, Chad? Hang on a minute. I'm gonna have to mute because when I go near him, it's gonna echo. So hang on.
Go out and come back in.
Did anybody hear anything I just said?
Yeah, I heard the whole thing. Can you not hear me?
No?
Yeah, we can.
What the fuck?
You can't hear us?
I can't hear nothing.
Well, I know the going blind is from the Pornhub, but I don't know about the going deaf part.
I'm on mute so we don't echo.
One is...
Go out and come back in.
Hello? Hello? It's going, the volume thing is going up and down on mine, so.
All right. So does anybody find that it is an issue what Peg Lautenschlager is doing here?
Well,
And
it's
and
the issue.
right. And but okay. So y'all heard me say that whole scenario, right? I couldn't hear Nolan responding, but so
We heard you.
Stephen Glenn just says, "Hey, here I am, and I'm gonna sit myself as a charter member, as a founding member, and I'm going to make sure that this thing gets settled with prejudice. So Stephen Avery can't never bring it back up. We're not going to bring Gregory Allen's profiled identification in here. We're going to make sure it settles with prejudice. So Kocurek and Vogel are off the hook for good. And then we're going to screw Stephen Avery out of $5 to $8 million at least on an average contingency there that he
Well,
I
and
don't think
here's what I was going at before. Even if you got say 160K, he could have gotten 40% of $5 to $8 million.
right.
And he chose not to do that. No, he got compensated another way, or he got threatened some other way.
Right. I would say he's threatened because May 12th they're on to Fallon like stink on shit, white on rice, ugliness on Jack's West face. That's how they're on Fallon and Tinker, Stephen Tinker, the unit manager, and then it's less than a month. Here comes Stephen Glenn getting the invite to the commission, and when you're invited to sit on a political affiliation where the attorney general started the commission, and she is mandating a identification process and policy. Like her model policy was given specifically in light of Gregory Allen not being able to be identified, which was bullshit because we have a sexual predator profile for it. So when you're invited to that atmosphere, I say that Stephen Glenn wasn't necessarily paid off to do anything. I say he was more threatened to make it go away.
Yeah, but threatened with what? By what?
Peg Lautenschlager would be
Yeah,
threatened.
but like kitty diddling, like he seems like a pretty clean cut guy. Like, what would they have gotten him on?
Well, okay, so here we have Fallon that just got deposed. What does Fallon tell Strang and Buden? You do so at your own peril. So do you fuck the career up of Stephen Glenn? Do you murder Stephen Glenn? I'm guessing there's several ways they would have shut you up if you wanted to continue with that civil suit. Um, he definitely takes a leave of absence for several months, and so he doesn't attach his membership to his own CV for the lien settlement for the other attorneys wanting the $160,000. It's like, hey, I'm not a member over here. Nothing to see here, folks. And I'm just going to call bullshit on it because that would be that. I think that would be something you should say to Stephen Avery. Hey, the attorney general invited me, gave me an email and hand picked me, not just an invite. It was a hand picked appointment by the attorney general to sit on her task force, her commission. That would be something I would run and tell my client, hey, don't worry, man. If anything gets out of control here, I can just go right to Peg Lautenschlager, straight to the horse's mouth and say, hey, we got ABCD happening, and these cops are doing you wrong, even in this criminal bullshit with Hallback. And that would have been all good if it happened that way, but we don't see that. We don't see Glynn at all telling Stephen Avery, hey, I'm attached to the attorney general now. But why would you hide that fact unless you're sitting there to purposely dissolve this settlement? She got
exactly my point.
she got to him. She got to Stephen Glynn.
Exactly my point.
Now, how much money he collected on the back burner after it was all said and done? I mean, I guess that's between him, her, and God. But you can rest damn assured that Jerry Buden knows, Dean Strain knows, Walt Kelly knows, and Peg Lautenschlager know.
Yeah, my point exactly.
So yeah, Stephen Avery, not only did he get a fair criminal trial, but the civil suit attorney that fucked him out of at least $5 to $8 million minus 40% contingency fee, recommended a bullshit defense attorney for him in the Hallback case. And everybody thinks that these lawyers are so stand up, that Dean Strang is stand up, and that Jerry Buden is so stand up. They'll stand you up all right.
Yeah, and then bend you over
Without no KY, and I'm not talking about Kentucky, folks.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but
I don't think Pornhub could take this dry fucking case. They couldn't handle anything like this to be premiered. But yeah, they raw dogged the shit out of Stephen Avery.
I agree.
15 years later, it's still burning.
But, well, that's what we have to figure out.
So I want to know what the hell is this admissibility issue. If you have and how it's almost like I even put it in my book about William Griesbach. It's almost like he signals Michael Griesbach not to fuck with us anymore a month before this ever even happens, and so he gets his own brother like, hey, something's gonna happen, stand clear of it. And so now we got Michael Griesbach covering for the state, so his ass doesn't get do so at your own peril. So he's biting a bullet too. And I mean, this person was a man of integrity at first, because he blew the whistle on Kocurek and Vogel to begin with, but yet he retains his job as the ADA of Manitowoc County. If they did something that was so much against that involved so much governmental misconduct, why the hell are you even still working there, Michael? Why wouldn't you just pack your bags and say, screw this shit? So it's all dog and pony show. That's all it is. It's a dog and pony show.
Well, you guys need to find out what's in that transcript.
I mean, I don't care if it's a 5-minute phone call, if it's a deposition or not. There was there was an issue of the admissibility, and I want to know what the issue is. Why the hell Kocurek didn't want to go on the record? What date was he originally supposed to be deposed?
I think it's interesting that a judge was ordering him to answer questions.
Right.
So that means he was refusing to answer something.
Right. So he refused. He refused on an earlier date. You know,
he refused something somewhere along the lines, whether it be the entire deposition, a particular stuff. He refused something because you have a judge ordering him to answer. Right.
And so then they're putting the instructions in, make it. You can raise the admissibility issue later, which instead of raising that admissibility issue, we see a settlement happening.
A dismissal.
Yeah, the dismissal claim as a settlement, but it's done without cost, fees, or disbursements from Kocurek, Vogel, or any of their insurers. So they sure as hell was off the hook for everything.
So where did that money end up coming from?
I think they basically washed the money from that. That's the only thing me and Juan can basically figure out is they washed Steve, Stephen Avery files for $1.2 million, and it was through the Wisconsin um, board, claims board. Okay, and it goes through Alan Lassie, and they gave him $25,000, and so they say that they'd have to file a petition. So he files it, and it goes through legislation, and he's asking for $1.2 million. And even Jerry Buting is one of the legislative members on this vote to only give him $460,000. Now, when something passes, it can't be spent for nothing else. It has to go. So basically, Stephen Avery had $460,000 out of $1.2 million. They voted to give him less than half of it, and it has to be given to him. But so since he filed this civil suit after they only agreed to give him $460,000, they hold on to it. They can't give that money to anything else. So it's sitting somewhere, either in Mark Gundrum's office. Peg Lautenschlager took over. I don't know who the hell took over it, but that was his money, tax-free, passed through the legislation, and it was set aside to give to him. So I think they get Kocurek and Vogel off the hook, and they say, hey, we're just gonna give you this $460,000 we got laying over here. Someone takes $60,000 off the top, and they split the rest with Stephen. 400. They had to pay someone. They had to pay someone a fee to shut their mouth, and that's where I honestly believe that money come from.
Yeah, but 160 grand's not a lot to an attorney, any decent attorney anyway.
Right.
So I think there was something else that had to be. I mean, who knows? You know, I mean, remember Braveheart where he said, "Oh, so and so, yeah, he cost me a pretty penny, but the other guy, I bought him off for a lot less."
Right. So the settlement, the what you call quote settlement unquote money, I believe, come from legislation. Now, whatever they get paid on their own time, in between times, behind the scenes, beyond that, I mean, that's like Lautenschlager's call, I guess. But dude, that's the only place I can figure that settlement come from is from the legislative bill that they passed to give to Stephen Avery tax free. It's not reported to go anywhere else, and you can't give it to anybody else. It is when you pass it, it goes specifically for what is called out for.
True.
And
I mean, it's probably part of it, but
and so then again, my problem there is Stephen Avery petitions legislation before he files his civil suit. So we have Jerry Buting as an acting legislative member saying, "Oh no, let's not give him $1.2 million. Let's vote to give him less than half of this money, this amount." And so, how the hell were you ever on Stephen Avery's side to ever begin with? You wasn't.
yeah, but again, you don't find that out until it's way late.
Well, I started blowing a whistle on Dean Strang and Jerry Buting as early as February of 2016, just a couple months after Making a Murder started. And I don't know, these idiots are just, oh God, they're starting these tours and they're rock stars and we're in love with them. Yeah, go enter Pornhub with one of them and let them fuck you like they did Stephen Avery. Then tell me how much they love you. Run a stop sign and then appoint one as your attorney. it's like the Ralph Armstrong case. Jerry Budin was handling that in August of 2005, and I think he got traded off. Hey, we'll let Ralph Armstrong walk, and he's doing this. He's doing this brief with Peg Lautenschlager. It's going through, the Supreme Court as a post-conviction appellate, and Peg Lautenschlager was attached to it, and so I honestly believe she says, "Hey, I'll give you Armstrong, but you're gonna help me out with Avery, and you're gonna fuck him over for me." But yeah, so Ralph Armstrong walks.
Well, that could have been a payoff if you think about it.
It definitely lines up to look like it was.
I have a huge problem with anybody attached to Stephen Avery's exoneration being attached to the defense. And that's included Stephen Glynn, because he gets he's handpicked by Peg Lautenschlager to sit down on her commission and work in a political environment with other politicians, with other judges, with other senators, with other sheriffs, with other DCI agents, with other state crime lab employees that are already against Stephen Avery. So, talk about persuasive means to make people turn the other way. Stephen Glynn, he was approached, and if they told him they were going to kill him, I have no idea, but you see how the settlement ends.
Well, freedom isn't free. That cliche pertains to this too.
I think okay, so it's a known fact that Peg Lautenschlager handpicked all of these people. They're the commission members. I would like to see the emails exchanged between Stephen Glynn and Peg Lautenschlager. Whatever documents to be ceded to this commission, I would like to see. Whatever minutes in this meeting, how he gets invited to a meeting, I would like to see the documentation on this, so we could study Peg Lautenschlager's demeanor when seating Stephen Glynn, because I believe she was kind of pissed off. And the last people you want to piss off is the Clinton administration.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So you want to know, like, what his payment was. I think his payment was keeping his life, basically.
Well, no, because there's like you were talking about, there's another guy that's like, well, this person goes free. Okay, freedom isn't free.
Yeah, so Ralph Armstrong, he goes free, and it's like I don't see how many I don't understand how people can be like so much fooled by attorneys. Like when the hell does lawyer not mean liar in Latin, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very valid point.
Now your attorneys, even the good ones do dirt, man. Even the good ones do a lot of dirt.
Well, you kind of have to. If you watch, Better Call Saul, it's kind of part of the game.
Right? And then we see, like, on all these fake ass NCIC shows and everything, all the officers are going rogue in every fucking episode to catch a bad guy, no matter what means, even if it's unethical. And I have a huge problem with just TV shows when they write shit like that. It's like this ain't the way this shit's supposed to be done. Catch the criminal fair and square. you, you know?
Well, true, but yeah, our legal system's got sometimes where, oh, you didn't say a specific word when you arrested the guy, he goes free, and then he kills somebody else. So that's always a double-edged sword, you know?
Well, I think like whatever sword was being swung around in this case, it had about 3 blades on it, and they were. I mean, look at Brendan Dassey. Ken Kratz at the end of Stephen Avery's trial, he sits there and stands up and says, "There's one person responsible for Teresa Hallback's death, and one person only, and that person is Stephen Avery."
Yeah, and yet
one person only. And they have to state this because if they bring Brendan Dassey into it, then the jury is going to realize that, hey, $2.3 million worth of forensic evidence tested, nothing corroborates Brendan Dassey's interrogation, his coercion. Nothing collaborates it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting the people that do make false confessions. I mean, there's a lot of people that make false confessions just to get the hell out of the interrogation room.
Well, hell, I just watched another forensic files on that. You know, well, why would the guy confess? And it turns out this other guy, like, you know, finally gets like 2 life sentences, finds Jesus and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, I killed this girl in this Pizza Hut one day." You know, and it ended up being, yeah, because when he said, "Oh, you're going to find my DNA all over the place," and sure enough, they did. You know, but that guy had been in prison for 8 years. So,
right. Well, I don't know if you had a chance to watch The Innocent Man, but they interrogate several of these. There's 4 people that end up doing convicted of murder, and some of them, the cops are interrogating, and you know they're interrogating them off video, and then before they turn the video on, like some of these people said, "Oh, I had a dream and I dreamed that it happened this way," and so when you turn the video on, they're like, "Tell us about that dream."
yeah,
About the dream, and then they will convict them for the dream they had, like it's an admission of guilt.
yeah, I didn't see, but I remember it was in the previews or something.
Yeah,
They were talking about that, and I wanted to
crazy.
I had something else to do. What'd you say?
I said it was crazy. We just watched it Chad's seen it before. I just watched it the other day for the first time. The Innocent Man. The things they did to those 4 is unbelievable.
It's a book by John Grisham, and it's his only nonfiction book that he writes.
Right.
You ever get a chance to read it, and then watch it, because you'll understand the documentary a lot better. But I mean, it talks about using pubic hairs and burning people. I mean, it's almost like Stephen Avery case before Stephen Avery case ever happened. It's so entertaining.
Well, in that case, I'll just wait for it to come out on Pornhub Premium.
Oh my God. I don't think it's gonna make it there. I don't.
Well,
think
if it's got pubic hairs and burning, you bet your ass is going to be under the fetish.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be under the sexting district attorney files, sex fetish of the district attorneys on Pornhub.
Yeah, there you go.
So anybody's got any idea where the hell Ken Kratz took flight to? He said he was moving, is what I got the gist here lately. He shut down his Twitter.
I'm guessing he had a U-Haul, but to U-Haul his fat ass around somewhere.
You'd have to have a 26-foot truck for that. 2 of them, one for that damn thing he calls a wife.
I just find it miraculous that he's dating somebody.
He's married to her.
He's married to her? Oh, geez.
He's married to her.
Well, I guess there's someone for everyone, right?
Oh God. Oh,
Hey, whatever. I
can't.
don't have to watch it. But you got to think, you know, I don't know where they honeymoon, but I guarantee you the desk clerk put them on the first floor.
Oh.
Well, it would save floors and ceilings from being covered profusely in sweat.
Well, yeah, that's exactly my point. You know, can you imagine being the maid that has to change those sheets?
Oh, shut the hell up, dude. I think I just threw up in my mouth.
You
It's
just
all
took
right.
the words right out of my mouth.
Ugh, ugh.
Ugh. Why would you say something like that? I thought we were friends.
Because I just love to
Can't
see,
be your friend no more.
just love to see
Yeah,
people
we're
in
not friends no more.
uncomfortable situations over the internet.
Oh my gosh. It's just a visual that just, no.
Hey, I had to like do like Buddhist chanting in order to like get to the point where I could say that without puking. So yeah,
And not eat for
I
3
had to
days
put
before you said it.
yeah. I mean, that
Make
was
sure there was nothing
was a
left
lot
in
of
your stomach.
prep I had to go through for that.
Hey,
It was
baby.
like
feel
like
ya.
the exact opposite of what you have to do for a colonoscopy.
I feel you. I get it.
Found me an Ollie Wally. What's up, Ollie Wasley?
Yeah, he's mad. I just left him by himself. I'm
My
dealing
little
with the cats.
Ollie Wasley.
Mhm.
I think he's
Cat.
pulling on somebody.
Yeah, nobody's getting along. I have 3 cats. So with Ollie here, my 3 cats are quarantined to one half of the house. I have my house split in 2, basically, with a door. And the cats get half the house and the dogs get the other half of the house.
Well, that'll happen.
Yeah, well, I
Alright.
have one cat that he'll fuck Ollie up, so Pickles knows better. Pickles knows not to mess with him, but Ollie doesn't yet, and that cat will fuck him up. I just don't want Ollie to get hurt.
Pickles will fuck him up with his pickles.
No,
All right.
Noodles will fuck up Noodles will fuck. So Noodles is the cat, Pickles is the dog.
Oh, well, as long as Noodles doesn't give Pickles the noodle or the pickle.
I'm waiting for Relic and Taco to be born for some reason.
Pickle and taco.
Yeah.
Pickle and taco. That would have been great.
Relic and Taco.
I name my animals after food, apparently.
Nice.
Well, Noodles came to me with his name, and he kind of started it. Noodles came with his name. I didn't name him.
Well, I knew somebody with a cat named Cheeseburger, so.
Hey, whatever works.
Well, because it literally did look like that cat that, you know, the I can ask Cheeseburger. So they named it Cheeseburger. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not like cats come when they're called, you know. Cats like leave a message and get back with you.
Oh, mine comes when it's called. Mine does. He's pretty cool. He comes when I whistle. He's pretty cool. He knows his
Really?
name. He knows who he is. He's
Wow.
the one cat I've had that will do that. Yes.
Well,
I've never had a cat act like that until
I've seen
now.
a cat play fetch, so you never know. Sometimes you get a cool cat. The rest of the time, you just get a box of shit in your house creator.
Yeah, I have 2 of those. I do have one cat that is worth it. The other 2 I could definitely live without.
Well, just like Jeff Foxworthy said, it's like, you know, sometimes when we were young, the cat clawed mom's new curtains, the cat ran away.
Yeah.
So when grandma got sick, kids, we got something to tell you. Grandma ran away.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. But, yeah, Georgia boy, all yours. All right. And I still got a bunch of stuff I got to do tonight. So, is there anything we missed for this live that we need to talk about before I go?
No, I think we covered
I think
it.
we're good. It's been 2 hours. I think we can call it a day at this point.
Okay. All right. Groovy. Well, when you get your next setup, make sure you do all that stuff I suggested with that FOIA and see if you can get that. You can get that. Make sure you give me that transcript, and then we'll go over that one too. See if we can't get anywhere with it.
Right, yeah, we
Yeah, well,
definitely need to get that.
I don't know that we'll get very far as long as we're dealing with coronavirus, but yeah, it's definitely something we'll look into
Yeah, we gotta
in the
wait for
next.
the courts to open back up, I guess. So,
Well, to quote Randall Stevens, aka Andy Dufresne from the movie Shawshank Redemption, it's amazing what
My
you can
favorite
accomplish by
movie.
mail.
right,
It is.
yeah.
It absolutely is.
So,
I'm ready for that library to come.
all right, cool. Well, when that gets done, give me a holler, and then we'll do this again.
A pleasure as always. You stay safe.
All right,
Wash
you
your
too.
hands. Don't get coronavirus, and we'll talk again real soon.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
All right, be
Bye.
safe.
All right, bye.